Salutations, respected viewers, or saludos, buenos días. Llámame Jorge de Irlanda. Estoy aquí en la calle, enfrente de la casa donde habitada José de San Martín, el liberador de Argentina, Chile y Perú. And I think I can't do the rest in Castilian. No puedo hablar castellano, olvidado muchas palabras, porque la última vez que he visitado la Hispanidad en 2007, yo estuve en Barcelona en septiembre, but that's a Catalan-speaking place. Anyway, so José de San Martín is best known for liberating Argentina, if you're an anti-colonialist, that is. And he was born in Argentina, and I can't pronounce the name of the place, not in Buenos Aires, in 1778 it's believed. Actually, no birth certificate or baptismal record survived, so people are surmising this based on the age he said he was in passports and his marriage certificate and so forth. So he was born to Spanish parents. His father was a soldier of no great distinction, and most people in Argentina were of Spanish stock at the time. Spanish had begun settling it not that long before, only a little over a century earlier. So I know obviously there were some indigenous people in Argentina, particularly in the southern part of the country, where it's very, very chilly. But these days they're Argentines whose ancestors came from other countries such as Italy, France, Germany, Croatia, Poland, Great Britain, Ireland, China and so forth. But in those days they were either indigenous peoples of that country or else they were of Spanish descent. Anyway, so he at least went to school, and a great many people were illiterate at the time, and he joined the Spanish army around about the age of 14. So it was a Spanish colony. Remember, the Spanish Empire was everything from California to Tierra del Fuego at the time. So that was that. Then the Peninsular War broke out. So Napoleon was really the master of Europe, and he twisted the arm of the deranged Spanish monarch, persuaded him to stand aside. Well, persuade, that's not the word. And the scheming Prime Minister Godoy had not been very faithful to the King of Spain. So Napoleon placed his elder brother, Joseph, on the Spanish throne, and therefore to rule the Spanish overseas colonies. But anyway, most Spanish people wouldn't accept this. They said this was a fraud. Legally, this is a nullity. So they rose against him, and there was this irregular warfare in the countryside, and the word guerrilla was invented as in little war. So fighting as partisans and attacking the French in the defiles and these narrow mountain passes. The French army wasn't that French. Many people were of other nationalities, including Spanish. Some Spanish people were loyal to King Joseph, accepted him as a rightful king. Not many, but it went very badly for the French in Spain. And the British seized their chance and intervened and sent troops to neighbouring Portugal, which had been an ally of England since the Middle Ages. I can't remember when, this is the 13th century. And I do mean being an ally of England at the beginning, not the United Kingdom. Obviously, England was a predecessor state of the United Kingdom. So the Peninsular War began with the British Army fighting in Portugal and in Spain, and gradually driving the French out and invading in southern France. So eventually the Napoleonic Wars were over. But because of this, Madrid lost control over its colonies. So people in Argentina, for instance, could rebel against Madrid and say that they were actually doing it on behalf of the legitimate government of Spain. They did. So they became self-governing. But they got used to that and began to guard it jealously. And after the end of the Napoleonic Wars, didn't want to go back to taking orders from Madrid. But San Martin wasn't into that initially, and he'd gone to Spain and he was fighting there against the French. And then he came to London. He met people from other Latin American countries who were here at the time, Bernardo O'Higgins and Miranda, and they became friends, and they agreed that all these Spanish-speaking countries of the Americas ought to break away and become independent. Of course, they had an example of the United States. They felt the position of the 13 colonies was analogous to that of the Spanish colonies at the time, and that was that, and they shouldn't be beholden to a country thousands of miles across the ocean. So they returned to Argentina, and a rebellion began more or less straight away of the revolutionaries against the royalist forces. Now perhaps we can't call them Spanish because many people were not Spanish as such, were not born in Spain. Maybe even their parents or grandparents hadn't been born in Spain. But there's some Argentines, Chileans, Peruvians and so forth who said, no, we should be linked to Spain, we want to be part of the Spanish Empire, and fought for King Ferdinand VII. So I won't give you a blow-by-blow account of this war, but anyway, eventually the separatists won. That was that. So San Martin, he's regarded as a national hero by the Republic of the Argentine, by Chile, by Peru, and he spent time in all those countries. And he helped to rule Argentina to begin with. There was a triumvirate or a directorate. The French had run their country in a similar way in the early years before Napoleon initiated one-man rule. And so that was that, but eventually it was pushed aside. He was a man of fairly liberal ideas. That didn't always go down well with the elite. And then he retired. 1837, Argentina went to war against France in an episode that very few people in Argentina know about. Again, he offered his sword to the government. He would fight for them, but they said, no, thank you. You're too aged and infirm. This stage, Argentina was not raising the issue of the Falklands, or Las Malvinas, as the Argentines would call it. Then he moved to France towards the end of his life. He lived in Paris briefly, but the 1848 revolution broke out and there were too many ructions in Paris. So he retired to Boulogne-sur-Mer by the English Channel, and that's where he expired in 1850. So his corpse was later returned to Buenos Aires and interred there with the greatest of honor in that cathedral there on that main square. I can't remember what it's called. Plaza Cinco de Mayo. And it's by La Casa Rosa, as in the Pink House, which is the presidential palace. So yeah, and I've been to his tomb, which is always guarded by a unhorsed cavalryman. And I was asking whether I could film, and he had to almost imperceptibly nod his head, because he had to keep this very solemn attitude whilst he was granting me permission to film. So that is San Martin, after whom many things are named in Argentina. And this is where he resided, just briefly, in about 1812. That's enough from me, so please follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and donate to me on Patreon, on PayPal, georgecallahan79@gmail.com. Book me as a tour guide in London, and book online lessons with me in history, politics, religious studies, international relations, linguistics, French, I can't think what else. That's all. Goodbye.